You guys got me. I'm late. No real good reason. Just get caught at the university and you're doing things. But some interesting things came up about history and politics. Um, we were talking about in one of my classes the headline that is put out by the White House that is saying that Trump is ending illegal discrimination and restoring merit based uh, reward in the country. And obviously, this is him removing uh, non discrimination requirements in government funding, in government contracts. So companies that had been previously mandated to not have discriminatory practices could not do business with the United States government. As did the United States government have protected policies to ensure that two things: historic inequalities or systematic practices that created outcomes of inequality were reduced, curtailed, if not abrogated completely. Trump is removing that. These are designed not only to make sure it doesn't happen in the future, but to create opportunity for that gap of opportunity that have been created with discriminatory practices to close. So, non discriminatory legislation is designed for two things: to stop it in the future and to create an opportunity to close, to repair reparations, that gap that was created by this alleged advantage. Now, the first thing we have to understand is Trump is not in charge of deciding what is legal and what is illegal. He has an equal counterpart, which is the Supreme Court, that is in charge of laws being constitutional or not. So, why is the executive branch putting out reports of their branch addressing legal matters when that's not the area of the executive branch? Even more, why is it the Supreme Court has not put out a statement of concern centered around this branch coming into their area of expertise? Why is it Congress is not addressing the president is functioning outside of his area of responsibility? Now, this is Republican or Democrat, because again, just for housekeeping, I am neither Republican, I'm neither Democrat. I don't think either serve the purpose of the people. They definitely don't serve the purposes of black people. So, this is not a political argument. This is a structural argument. If we have the Supreme Court to oversee laws, why is the president not requesting the Supreme Court address this matter? Why is the executive branch addressing it? And I'm lost as to why everyone is so quiet on that structural argument. Not, oh, it's not fair, oh, it's not right, oh, he's trying to get segregation back, all of that stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. This is a structural argument that really has no retort to it. And if there is a retort, I'd like to know. But I don't think it's so obvious that everybody knows it, hence nobody's talking about it. I don't think it's that kind of situation. But let's take that further. Restoring merit-based reward to the American private sector. Merit-based is a very subjective concept. Who gets merit, who finds merit, who deserves merit is how the women's wealth gap has been maintained. That's how the racial wealth gap has been maintained. It's because now it is completely subjective to the person who is in charge, which is disproportionately white males. So I would ask the present administration and anyone who supports these moves, if you're restoring merit-based reward, when did we have merit-based reward in this country? Did we have merit-based reward when whites and immigrants were being awarded millions of acres in westward expansion? Were we functioning under merit-based reward when whites received free state university education for education on how to develop the free land they were given? Were we functioning under a merit-based society when Native American land was being taken? Were we functioning under a merit-based society when women could not vote? Were we functioning under a merit-based society when women were under the policy of coverture? Were we in a merit-based society during the civil rights movement? Were we in a merit-based society in the war on drugs? We've had a lot of presidents apologize for that. We had a lot of Congress people apologize for that. What is this period that we're returning to that was merit-based? Because the White House's headline was, "We are restoring merit-based reward." So when is that period? The economy is starting to teeter. I'm not sure if it's going to get as bad as 2008. In some ways, I think that would be good for the country. Now, how do you say it's good for the country? Sometimes you have to take some pain in the short term to get long-term pleasure. If an ultimate debacle comes from greed at a level that hurts everyone, the people that create this dynamic have to face themselves. That's in a great way what happened with policing, with George Floyd. Police officers had to face themselves. Now, many of them hasn't changed, and many of them are going to continue to be who they've always been to the black community. In fact, I believe most of them are that way toward the black community if they have the opportunity or the inclination. But if the market crashes out of sheer greed. Because again, I tell people, stop blaming Trump. Millions of Americans voted for this. He said what he was going to do, and all of these people voted for it. Get mad at your neighbors. Don't get mad at Trump. He said, this is what I'm going to do. Is that what you want? And people lined up for hours to say, that's what we want. He had the popular vote. He had the electoral vote. They have control of the House. They have control of the Senate. This is what the country has asked for. Here's the funny part. This is not a new condition for black people. That's why black people aren't mad. We're still discriminated against. I have experienced discrimination personally. There are many systems that exist to maintain discrimination. And if you don't think discrimination is still at the core of our society in majority form, why are they going after anti-discrimination law? If there are people who don't want to discriminate, why are they removing discrimination law? Of all the things that we could be attacking in society, creating opportunities for poor people, notice they're taking down the Department of Education, but not the school loans. I believe it makes sense for black people not to say anything. I think black people are just watching because it doesn't matter how far this country falls. Everybody's falling to where black people are. That's not a new condition for us. To be excluded, to not have jobs, to be last hired, first fired, to be disproportionately compensated, to not have jobs and have to make do. That's been the black existence since we've been here. So Trump can't hurt us. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. Trump is no different than Reagan, who devastated the black community. The Clintons that devastated the black community. He's no different. Obama did nothing. Biden was completely complicit with all of the stuff that happened during Reagan. So this is not a red or blue conversation. So I see why black people are panicking. But my question is, where are all of these white people that have constantly told me that they're offended when they hear a position that people believe that most American white people are racist, that they are just devastated? They didn't do it. I didn't own slaves. I don't benefit from slaves. I don't have white privilege. Okay, they will concede all of these things in the past, but now they're living in it and it's happening right in front of them. This is just like when FDR said Social Security doesn't apply to the jobs black people have. It's no different. How FDR tried to exclude black people from the New Deal. It's no different. This has always been what's happened to black folks. So, but it's that famous saying, you know, when they came after the Christians, I didn't care because I wasn't Christian. When they came after the Jews, I didn't care because I wasn't a Jew. When they came after my neighbor, you know, it was okay because it wasn't me. But when they finally came after me, there was nobody left to help me because I didn't care about everybody else. That's what I tell poor whites or the non-racist whites that are in the country. That Martin Luther King Jr. said something, and I know most people outside of the black community only quote Martin Luther King Jr. during campaign time or February, but said that the problem does not just lie in the wicked doings of the evil, but in the silence of the alleged friend. The United States poured drugs into the country through the 80s and 90s, and particularly focused those drugs and the policing in black communities. And whites didn't care. In fact, they demonized black people for having that problem. Now the drugs are in the white communities, fentanyl and prescription drugs, and it is the problem with drugs is just as big as it was in the 80s and 90s, but they're not criminalizing it because it's not black folks. Well, had they helped the black folks, perhaps this would not have come to their community. When convict leasing started in 1865 with black folks, perhaps it wouldn't have hit poor whites in 1870. So I say, now, while all of these historically protective pieces of legislation are being attacked, if the white community in majority is going to remain silent, and you're going to let this happen to the, oh, it's blacks, I didn't care because I'm not black. Oh, it's immigrants, I don't care because it's immigrants. Who's going to be there to help you when it's you? Because historically, it always ends up you. Poor whites are the bulk of the labor force, just out of sheer numbers, out of population. It's not enough black people to sustain an economic labor force just with black people. So you can't just, it's not the abuse of the labor force does not create the economic windfall with the number of blacks it is. You have to eventually start doing it to white people. That's what's going to happen. Our whites are just letting it happen. And they act as though this is not barreling toward them. The difference is whites are devastated when it hits them. It's the condition of black people.